Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Michigan Outdoors Report Live. It is a little after 7 Eastern Standard Time, November 14th. It is deer season eve in the state of Michigan. How are we doing tonight, Dennis?
Oh, I'm fired up, man. I can't wait till tomorrow. I ain't gonna sleep tonight either. like
Yeah, I hear
Christmas, my
that.
like Christmas, my birthday, and the 4th of July all wrapped up in one.
Bill, you excited? You ready to go, brother?
I am. I wish the weather was a little bit better, but gonna roll with it, take what we have, and just be happy to be back out in the woods.
Outstanding. Yeah, my house is pretty stoked. I got 6 hunters in my house, of course, 4 boys, myself and my wife, and we were pouring over the SD cards, the final pull before the hunt here this afternoon, and oohing and eyeing, and look at that one. So high hopes for tomorrow. Lots of excitement for sure. So tonight we are joined by a very special guest. We have with us this evening Mr. Chad Stewart from the Michigan DNR, where he serves as the Servant and Wildlife Interactions Unit Supervisor. Thanks for joining us tonight, Chad.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what's on everybody's mind going into rifle season is, are we going to have a good year? How does it look, Chad? Give us a 10,000-foot view of your diagnostic of the 25 rifle season.
It's always tough when you try to generalize a state like Michigan, right? Like, are you going to have a good year or bad year? Because, my gosh, Michigan is so different, top to bottom, east to west. So there's always context that has to be provided, right? When you talk about these things. In Southern Michigan, I think very few people will argue that we've got a lot of deer throughout most of that region. But the exception is we've had some places this year that have been hit with hemorrhagic disease. Jackson County, parts of Washtenaw County, they really took it on the chin this year. Pretty significant die-offs. If you're in one of those core areas that got hit really hard with the EHD, you're probably gonna have a rough year. There's probably not many deer in some of those areas. Likewise, if you're in some of those areas that were hit last year and are recovering, places like down in Berry County got hit pretty hard, parts of Kalamazoo and that whole sort of southwestern corner, they got hit pretty hard too. So they should have a little bit better year. There was still some EHD down there this year, but a little bit better. And they should start to see some recovery, but it's not going to be what it was 2 years ago. I'm guessing. For the rest of that region, it should be pretty good. There's lots of deer, lots of good bucks running around. Obviously, mild winters don't have an impact at all on deer down there. So that's if you're in that area, you're looking probably pretty good in most spots. As you get further north in the northern lower, deer numbers, again, very regional. Public land numbers are probably pretty low. A little bit harder hunting on some of those areas. Lots of deer still on some good private land to be had. Still lots of good bucks to be had. One of the big things that we're talking about, people in northern lower, that ice storm that hit in March this year was no joke. Mm-hmm. And it was devastating for that region. Obviously, the people that lived through it certainly know what I'm talking about. And those scars are going to be on the landscape for years. So what we've encouraged people to do is, make sure you're doing a lot of preseason scouting in those areas that got hit really hard with that ice storm, because there's still so much trees and debris and branches and stuff down that access could be really difficult on some of those back roads still. If you want to get deeper into the woods, your path that you used to always take might not be the same. And deer movement may have changed as well. You get some of those areas that are just absolutely impacted with, big trees and branches and stuff that's come down. Deer want to take the path of least resistance. So areas that they used to focus on and travel and spend a lot of time in before may not be the same as it's always been. So just sort of understand what you're dealing with going in and assume that what you're familiar with in the past may have changed. Then you get to the UP and it's obviously a whole different ball game up there, and it's it's very different when you talk about UP deer hunting. I mean, you talk about UP deer hunting in Menominee County, you're probably in line to have a pretty good year. Always have good deer numbers. Menominee County is always right up there. It's never the top, but it's always in the top 10 in terms of number of deer that are being killed. And for a UP county, that's saying something because it doesn't look like a lot of the other counties. And as you get closer to like the big Lake Superior up there, things start to thin out a little bit more. I have to work a little bit harder to find some of those deer. They're there, but you got to work a little bit harder, and success rates go down quite a bit. And Jordan, you're familiar with that area, so I know you know some of what I'm talking about there.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I kind of want to slap that ping pong ball back across the table on a couple of things there. With the EHD, one of the questions I've seen, and I'm sure you have, Chad, online or whatever, is people say, well, if it's so bad, why doesn't the DNR just stop hunting in those areas this year? Like, can you share with our audience like what the DNR's doing with EHD? What's the EHD response plan, if you will, in the affected areas?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not much, right? EHD always comes up in late summer, early fall. It's always after our deer regulations have been set, which is usually like early summer. If we can get our act together, late spring, but it's usually early to midsummer. So it always happens after, so you can never prepare for it. So that's one thing, and you can never predict where and when EHD is going to happen, like which year. You can always predict the seasonality because that's what it is. But I have seen some other states respond to EHD by lowering quotas. My general opinion of that is they lower it enough that it makes it look like you're doing something, but it really doesn't have that much of an impact. They might lower an antlerless quota from 3 to 2 or 2 to 1 or something like that, but they never shut it down. Most of those places you can still shoot a couple antlerless deer, and that's what most hunters are. Most hunters aren't shooting that many to begin with, so a lot of that is really for show. But what we do is we evaluate the impacts going into the following year. We try to get a lot of participation and reports throughout the summer to try to characterize where exactly the EHD outbreak is occurring. And typically what we see is it's not a county-wide impact, but it's several townships within a county that are severely impacted. And then you go, 5 miles over, 10 miles over, and it's like it never happened. It's not there. So really what we see is most impacts with hemorrhagic disease. Hunters are the best response to it as well. Like, hunters know when deer numbers are down and they're not going to continue to harvest. So hunters really self-regulate themselves quite a bit. Usually a couple years later, the herd is pretty much bounced back. And what I've heard from people in multiple areas that have happened over different times is they typically see really nice bucks about 3 to 4 years after a substantial EHD outbreak. So I know that doesn't help people that are going through it this year, but it is sort of a silver lining to look through in the future that typically we see nicer bucks coming out of those areas a couple years from now. And we always tell people, just be your own best manager going through this season. If you want to see more deer, you're not happy with the numbers you're seeing, obviously pull it back. And this is where the idea of co-ops really come in. So when you're working together with individuals across multiple properties and trying to manage for a specific age class or number of deer or balance of the habitat, it becomes really valuable to have those relationships already established.
Absolutely. Now, is there any rhyme or reason? Is there any way that the department could possibly predict these areas where EHD may crop up? Is that a regional thing you're kind of watching year to year, or are there telltale signs that are early warning devices?
There are some early warnings that might make you think we might be in for a bad EHD year. So typically what we see is if you have sort of a wet spring and then a dry, droughty summer, those are two factors that start to make you raise your eyebrows like, okay, this could be a good one. but you can never really predict where in the state it's going to be. I mean, sometimes it's widespread, like in 2012. We got hit, and this was before my time up in Michigan, but I was working down in Indiana, and we got hit in probably at least half of the counties down in Indiana, and I think probably most of the counties in southern Michigan were probably hit as well. So climatic conditions lined up perfectly for an EHD outbreak. Some of that still exists this year, but you can never really predict what part of the state it's going to be. And typically we've been seeing most of our EHD outbreaks in southern Michigan. We don't really see that as you get further north, but it is seemingly creeping that way. And I suspect over the next 10, 20, 30 years, you'll start seeing more and more of those, at least northern lower counties, start to have EHD outbreaks infrequently.
Then moving over to the eastern side of the state, down the southeast and on up into the thumb, where we've got those really high deer densities. That's obviously been an ongoing point of concern. Was it last year or the year before you wrote that open letter to Michigan hunters asking us to harvest more antlerless? Has that been happening? Have you seen an increase in antlerless harvest in the southeast over in the thumb? Are we on track? Do we need to do better? Where are we at, Chad?
No, and no. It's pretty much where we're at. No, I don't think our antlerless harvest magically jumped up because some guy wearing a government shirt decided to write a letter of his opinion. That didn't happen. Shocking, right? I think it brought awareness. It was a good conversational tool. Some of those areas in the southeast are really challenging because hunters just don't have access to a lot of those places. So that's a huge piece that we're trying to work on a little bit better. As you can imagine, that's not an easy nut to crack. But I think we are making some inroads there. We've been working really closely with several communities in Oakland County and some of those areas, and really trying to establish at least the idea of deer management in some of those communities. And then the next step is trying to convince them, if their community is laid out in the right way and open to the ideas, is getting some bow hunters in some of those areas. And we have several locations already where that's proven successful. I'm actually a member of a urban bow hunting team here in Meridian Township where I'm at, and they run a fantastic program and really view hunters as a resource within their community, which is refreshing to see, right?
Sure.
Some of these urban communities, and they actually are happy to have hunters involved and participating in helping manage the deer herd. So tremendous example of what can be done in other communities. So yeah, we've got an antlerless harvest problem really in the southeast. I won't say it's everywhere, but so much of it starts and ends with access and getting people on the right properties that need the most help managing deer.
Does it still just come down to the age-old door knocking, getting out, pounding the boot leather, and trying to get permission?
Yes, to some degree. I think it's really challenging for someone to knock on a door as a stranger and say, "Hey, can I hunt your land for deer?" And someone to be willing and open to receive that person and saying, "Sure, come on in." Nobody's happening to hunt it. I think really what it amounts to more is trying to make relationships within the community outside of hunting season, and trying to build up that reputation. Like, okay, Jordan Hoover, Bill Brown, Dennis Poet are these are good guys. So they go to church, they referee at the kids soccer game, or umpire at the kids t-ball game. I mean, you have a face and familiarity, and you're trusted within the community, and you just have conversations, and all of a sudden it sparks up. It's like, "Hey, you got land? Okay, yeah, you hunt? Okay, that's cool." I'm a hunter myself, always struggle with trying to find access, and it just sort of comes around organically and naturally. And I think people have a lot more success that way. And one of the things that I learned from my dad, when trying to seek out permission is once you get permission, don't take it for granted either. And I don't know how often that happens or not, but come Christmas, any place that I have access to or permission to go through to access public land, I try to give that individual and that family a quick little Christmas card and like a gift card to wherever that I know that they like to eat or shop at, and just show a little bit of appreciation. And that really helps open the door and keep the door open for future years. So something I always encourage people to do. And a lot of those families like to eat venison as well. So if I have some like snack sticks or I don't mind giving up a package of back straps or steaks or anything like that, a roast, if that's something they're interested in, and if it gets me access again next year. So I would encourage people to think that way if they're not thinking that way already.
You give up your strength?
A little bit of it, not all of it, not all of it, Dennis, but like a little bit,
package.
yeah,
just one,
yeah, one pack, a smaller pack, not the T-loins, but a little bit of backstrap, if especially if it's a good property. Sure, I'll do that.
It's gratitude, not groveling, Dennis. Oh, so if we can put a number on it, and I mean, I'm privy to the data through the deer advisory team. The statewide average, what is it? It's 1.4 deer per hunter is the average across the state of Michigan. And
for successful hunters, so keep that in mind, right?
There you go.
So we're at a 50% success rate roughly. So it's 1.4 per successful hunter. Half of those hunters are getting 0.
So if you could assign a number in these high deer density areas where you would really like to see numbers come down, what per hunter would be good this year?
So that's a good question.
30.
Not about 30, but 30 point no. I think if you don't change your I don't think if you change the number of people hunting in that area, the number's got to be a lot higher. I'll throw out a number, and I have no way to scientifically back this up, so it's just me shooting from the hip.
Totally arbitrary, yes.
3 or 4. I mean, that would be great, right? I mean, trying to get more people to shoot more deer. Here's the thing, though, when we talk about it in those terms, I don't think most of the people want to shoot 3 or 4 deer. They just don't have the freezer space for it. Dennis is the exception, but honestly, if you shoot more than 3 or 4 deer, you're legitimately in the top probably 5% of hunters in Michigan, even at that low number. And if you get up to like 7, 8, 9, I mean, you're in the top 1%, if not fraction of a percent. I think the easier thing to do, Jordan, is how can we convert those people with 0s to 1? I think that's an easier move than to get someone to go from like 1 to 3 or even 1 to 2. So I think so much of what we talk about with deer management is how do we get more hunters more successful? And I think that has the ability to have more of a management level impact than trying to say like, okay, well, everybody's got to shoot 3 deer now. I just don't see that happening.
Good answer. So moving north, as you already touched on, the northern lower sure took a beating with that ice storm, and there's obviously some long-term impact there that's going to be felt. Being a diehard hunter myself on that, and one, I'm going, oh my gosh, it's going to be a nightmare because the travel routes and the patterns are going to be all thrown off and disrupted, and they're going to be willy-nilly everywhere. It's going to be snags and deadfalls and widowmakers. It's going to be impassable. And the other part of me smiles and goes, and that's perfect because no one else will want to be in here. So I think that potentially the guys that are willing to get in there and grind and hunt a gritty hunt are going to have a good year. And the people that are less able to do so, I think are probably going to be a little more impacted by that. But in the long term, like how long do you think it'll be for things to be air quotes normal habitat wise in that region?
I think it'll take. I think the definition of normal is going to change. Is basically what I think it's going to be. And you're right. I think for the hunter that doesn't mind putting some miles on the tread of their boot, I think they can easily get away from the pumpkin patch, right? Because it's going to be hard. You got to be going over lots of down trees, in and around some thick, nasty stuff that may be existing in some of those areas, and that's where the deer are going to go once they get pressured.
Yep.
So I think you got a really good chance of having a really cool hunt. So to your question, I think the definition of normal is going to change quite a bit, because I sit there and drive through north central Michigan, and I see all of those tops just absolutely ripped off. And I don't think like, oh my gosh, like how devastating was that? And I mean, right away, I mean, obviously you do at some point. So, but what I think about is, oh my gosh, how much sun is now hitting that forest floor? And what is this going to look like in terms of deer habitat in 2 to 4 years? And all of the different stump sprouts that are going to start popping up, and the different variety of forbs that are going to start growing, and just the amount of browse. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is going to be an absolutely awesome place to hunt in a couple years. So I really do think that hunters in the northern lower are going to experience some really good times of hunting based on this storm and the impacts that has, and how the forest responds to that. Because Mother Nature's amazing, right? She can heal through some pretty crazy stuff, and it winds up being more bountiful for a lot of her creatures.
Did you have any update from the TB zone in the northeast lower?
Not a ton. I mean, TB's been pretty steady, and I guess most people know what TB is, and we've had it for 30 years. I guess we don't need to go into a description of what it is, but obviously it's still the main management driver for those counties in the northeast, just because of the impact it can really have to primarily our cattle herd. But it is a zoonotic disease. I mean, people can pick it up, and you can have health issues from it if not treated correctly. I had a chance to talk with a woman that had TB and had it through exposure from deer, and just sort of the challenges that woman went through was powerful to hear, and you don't want more people to go through that. So it's still obviously a top priority for what we've got. We've still got it. It's pretty stable in that general area, but we keep finding areas where it keeps wanting to sort of bounce out, and we really maintain that if we don't manage for this disease and still focus on eradication, it will continue to spread. And that could literally have I'm not good with economics, but I mean, millions and millions of dollars impact to our cattle industry. And that's obviously not something we want. And we want to keep our deer healthy, and we want to keep our hunters healthy, and we want to keep our cattle healthy. So these are all things and reasons to justify why we put so much emphasis in our TB area.
And then sliding straight west over to the northwest 12 or 13, whatever it is. I don't know. It's like it used to be the Big 10, but it's not the Big 10. I can't keep up with all that. How much impact did the ice storm have on the northwestern counties versus the northeastern? Is it similar? Is it less? What are you projecting there?
I don't have a good grasp of the sort of scale of it. My understanding, it was mostly across that whole northern tier. So I don't think it was like a west, central, northeast. I've primarily been driving up through north central Michigan over the past couple months, and it's very clearly impactful there. And just seeing and hearing stories, I know it was definitely impacting the Northwest, but I can't tell you the degree of which area is worse or better or anything like that. I think they got hit just as hard. They're going to have this sort of the same story, right? That same sort of thing. Pretty hard to clean up, especially in big chunks of area. Maybe the smaller parcels got cleaned up quite well, but if you got some of those big wild areas, those state national forest areas, they might still be a little bit more challenging to get through, but the payoffs could really be good too if you don't mind working through it a little bit and doing some advanced scouting.
Outstanding. Well, then we cross the Big Mac into the wilderness of the Upper Peninsula, and things go every which way. We got such diversity in the UP, just like the Lower Peninsula. Hey, when you're talking about UP deer, you have to talk about the winter, right? Because we can try our best as hunters, as deer managers on the private side, or even in your capacity, Chad, to do the best that we can for the herd. But ultimately, in the Upper Peninsula, winter is the great equalizer. So what do you think we look like this year based on the last handful of winters?
Yeah, so we're starting with the winter topic on the UP, nothing else. Got it. Yeah, we'll, last winter was, I think it was classified sort of like a typical winter, like, borderline on the severe line. And when we talk about this, again, we're painting a very generalized picture. There are places in the UP that absolutely would have classified as this was a severe winter. So it's kind of muted out when you sit there and think about this area was more normal, this area was severe, this area may not have been quite as bad. And deer got through it okay. I didn't hear a ton from our field staff up there in terms of massive die-offs. So on the surface, I think the deer came through pretty well. And likewise, I think we heard generally average to pretty good, fawn, recruitment, going into this summer and fall. So I think things will be pretty much par for the course up there. The UP's got a long road ahead of it in terms of getting to where it has been and where we'd like it to be. And obviously that's not just a regulations change and, what deer can and can't be shot. That's there's a lot of factors going in there. And so much of that really starts with how can we get deer to get through the winter? And to me, a lot of it starts with habitat, and you want to get really good summer habitat to make sure that those animals are putting on enough fat going into those winter yards. Then you've got to have really high quality winter yards and plenty of forage and protection from those winters to keep them going and to make sure that they get through even some of the most severe winters.
Absolutely. You can't get away from a conversation about UP deer without mentioning the other W word, which is
water.
Wolves.
Oh, what wolves? Okay.
Wolves. Obviously, as you're keenly aware, there's an abundance of concern about wolves. There has been for a long time. They're federally listed. I mean, that's the bottom line at this point. But I think that there's a lot of hope for the future that perhaps, as things shift and things move at the federal level, that perhaps management authority would be returned to the states. And, once that happens, I think the folks are hopeful that the department will bring wolf management to bear in the UP. But, talk to us a little bit, Chad, about that cocktail of things in the UP. Like, get down in the weeds a little bit. You said that there's a lot of factors, and weather is one. Of course, we have a suite of apex predators. But if you had to build a pie chart and say these are the critical things affecting deer abundance in the UP, what's on your pie chart?
Yeah, it's all those things, right? I mean, I don't think we can talk about deer management in the UP without talking about wolves, without talking about coyotes, without talking about bears. So there's three pieces of pie right there. The winter, which we mentioned before, there's a fourth piece of pie. And then I think so much of this discussion is habitat. So to me, that's a very big piece of the pie, because habitat is and can be a great equalizer, right? It can, if you have really great habitat, summer forage, winter protection, that can help counteract a tough winter. If you've got really great habitat, that doe can hide her fawns a little bit better, where maybe a coyote or a bear isn't going to pick them up. If they've got really good habitat, maybe they don't have to concentrate so much, and it makes it a little bit harder for a wolf to track one down in the wintertime. So to me, so much of the discussion really falls on habitat. And unfortunately, that's probably the longest term fix, right? It's something that you just don't create really good habitat in 4 years, 5 years. I mean, this is not an EHD recovery down south. This is a dedication that takes decades. We're sort of paying for some of the scars that we've been dealt over the previous years. So I think it's our turn to, put time and effort forward to try to fix that, so the next generation doesn't have to go through what we're going through. And we need to work more on that.
Awesome. Now, as far as chronic wasting disease goes this year, we didn't touch on that. And I know that there's certain areas the department's wanting to focus on collecting samples this year. Do you know off the top of your head where those points of interest are this year?
Yeah, we're trying to finish up really a rotation around the state. So we started off finding CWD in really the southwestern part of the state. We spent a few years really just trying to do a lot of surveillance in that immediate area to get an understanding of really the scope and the breadth of the disease on the landscape. And then once we felt like we had a really good feel for that, the people that are way smarter than me that think about these things and surveillance and stuff said, well, CWD moves very slowly. Like, we can continue to pour resources in there, and yeah, we'll see change over time, but year to year, it doesn't change that much. It's just a sort of a slow progression. Where we can get the most value is starting to look in areas that we've never looked before. So we started this rotational plan around the state with the idea that if we do find CWD, we'll have at least a general understanding of how long it's been there based on our historic sampling. So we're just finishing up right now, trying to finish up parts of the Upper Peninsula. I think we've got a couple counties in the Northeast yet that we're trying to knock out. And then we'll have a complete 5-year history of surveillance across the entire state of CWD. I don't know. It's going to be hard to meet some of these goals that we have in the UP, like, up in like Keweenaw and Houghton County. We just don't get a lot of deer harvested out of those areas. And we certainly don't get a high percentage of them for CWD testing. So that's going to be tough, but that's okay too. We're just going to do our best to get what we can. A lot of the Eastern UP we're still focused on, and we're doing active surveillance there. A lot of those counties I mentioned in the Western UP, we're still focused on, Keweenaw, Houghton, Baraga, I think Ontonagon. So we're really focused on there. I think we still would like a few more out of Dickinson, because Dickinson's where we had that one case of CWD in the very southern part, but just wanting to finish up some additional surveillance there. And then we're done with the state, and then we'll sort of reevaluate where we need to go next. But one of the cool things we're doing with CWD, though, and I know CWD is not a big deal for a lot of hunters, but for some people it is. We've got these test kits that we've created. So while we're actively doing surveillance in some of these areas in the UP and a couple counties in the Northeast, anybody can get their deer tested, and anybody can get their deer tested for free. So you go to our CWD website, look up where these test kits are available. You can pick one up right now in the idea that you're going to be successful and want to get your deer tested. There's instructional videos and a link there that you can type into your browser. Shows you how to remove the lymph nodes. If I can do it, anybody can do it. You can send it, package it up, send it away. It comes with a disposable ice pack, and send it to a lab, and they do the testing for you. And it costs you literally $0. We pay for the postage, we pay for the kit materials, we pay for the testing. So anybody can do that if they want their deer tested for CWD.
Awesome. Now, I know when I went up to the commission meeting at NMU in Marquette last year, they had a table set up outside, and they had a whole bunch of the test kits that were available. Just take one when you walk by. That was really nice to see that. Dennis, did you have questions that you wanted to ask Mr. Stewart?
Well, I was kind of leaning towards the CWD. I was just curious if what do you think the chances are of them bringing back baiting in the lower come next year?
I wish I had a crystal ball. I don't know. It's obviously a super polarizing topic. I don't know. I know that discussions around baiting have seemingly intensified over the past year. So I feel like it's gone quiet for a little bit. I mean, this is going to be year 6, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly, that baiting has been, banned. But man, I also find it hard to go and fill up a tank of gas anywhere driving and not see a big pile of corn or beets or a bag of carrots, for sale, apples, anywhere.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we know people are doing it. We know people are disregarding it. So I think it's a fair question. How effective is the baiting ban if literally this many people are seemingly not following it? So I think that's worth a discussion. I'm sure we're going to tackle this topic and discussion in our deer advisory teams, and I'm sure some of our commissioners have opinions on it, and I know some of our legislators and elected officials have opinions on it as well. So, but trying to predict where that goes, I don't know. My magic 8 ball will tell me different things, so it depends how the wind blows at that time.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed out when they took it away, because where I hunt here in suburbia, it's super high pressure, you get tons of traffic. It's really hard to actually get these deer out on their on their feet, and
Yeah,
they took that away, and I'd been having a hard time. And
gotcha.
I mean, I'm figuring it out. I was just curious if you might have heard something.
Yeah, all I can promise you is that I'm 100% certain that it's going to be revisited, but where the final decision lies, I don't know.
Any other questions, Dennis?
Can't think of one just yet. What about you, Bill?
Everything I intended to ask, Jordan already asked them. So that made it easy for me, but definitely appreciate all the knowledge, Chad.
He left you no leftovers. That's typical
Nothing.
Jordan, I swear. Cleaning his plate and your plate as well.
Are you going out tomorrow, Chad?
Yeah. I don't really get to hunt a whole lot of November 15th. This is the first time I think I've been up here that it's fallen on a Saturday, and I could be wrong about that. Maybe early in my career, but this is the first time I can remember being able to go out and hunt on November 15th. Usually I'm working. When I first came up here, we had the check station, so that was a big thing, and then those went away a few years ago. But still, usually November 15th is falling on a weekday, and I'm usually working, and it's usually still a pretty busy day. I mean, there's, just being in the deer program, there's a lot of media folks that want to talk to you. There's a lot of questions that come in from staff or hunters that are dealing with certain things. So you try to make yourself available as best you can to answer those things. So being that it's a Saturday and you know, I've got other people now in the deer program to help out. I'm actually able to get out and looking forward to it. Like Bill said, it's going to be a nice weather day, but maybe not the ideal hunting day that you would think of, at least down in southern Michigan. Jordan, I don't know what they're calling for up where you're at, but
it's gross. It should be like 20 degrees right now. Everything should be white. Man, I'm going to be staggering out there in my flip-flops and my cargo shorts. It's disgusting. Oh. So Chad, you brought up something there about having other people in the deer program, and I was negligent in not bringing this up earlier in the show. So you actually promoted up in class over the last year because your former title was head deer biologist, correct?
it was deer, elk, and moose management specialist. Yeah, and that's what I was for about 10 years. So deer took up, and probably about 90% of my time. A little bit of time for elk, and then moose took a very little bit. But yeah, we restructured, and I think a lot of that was the recognition that we needed more capacity for people who specifically dealt with deer in Michigan. It's such a big deal. When I first came up here, you know, I was really fortunate. We had several researchers. There was another biologist that was up north, so we were able to divide a lot of these duties up. So there were multiple minds, and then over a couple years, I guess a lot of those people got tired of working with me in the deer program, and they just decided to leave. So they just kind of moved on and realized that I was the only one. It's like that Will Smith meme where he's like in the open room and looking around and nobody's with him. That's kind of how it felt. That's kind of how it felt with me in the deer program. Everybody had left me, right? Yeah, that was going on for a couple years, and I guess I messed things up enough where they realized, well, we got to get some more people in here to help him. So we were really lucky and got in Brent Rudolph, and Brent had worked with the Michigan DNR for almost, I think, 20 years before moving over to like the Rough Grouse Society, and then he was with Pheasants Forever for a little bit, but wanted to get back into the world of deer, and we were really fortunate to be able to get him back. So he's now our deer, elk, and moose management specialist. And if you haven't met Brent's incredibly intelligent, bright guy, has really good perspective on things, fantastic communicator, just really, really fortunate that we've got him back with the Michigan DNR. And then we also were able to hire another biologist, actually, that was before Brent, and that was her name's Samantha Courtney, and Samantha's really young but really bright, and you know, she's gonna I'm getting to the point where I just need to stay out of her way because she's such a hard worker and a bright girl. She's gonna go places, already impressing a lot of people with her analytical skills, her organization skills, her knowledge of deer, her handling of situations. So we've got a really, really strong team, and I'm just trying to stay out of their way because they've got really good ideas and work ethic, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can come up with here in the next couple years.
Well, maybe we can twist Brent's arm and we can get Brent Rudolph in here to do a season recap after everything's over. A little Brent Rudolph roast.
I'm sure he'd be open to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you give us, you know, obviously I'm plugged into it, but many of our viewers may not be. The deer advisory teams, what are they up to right now? What are they working on? What's their purpose and function?
Causing trouble. That's what they're up to. They're causing trouble. No, they're yeah. So our deer advisory team, it's really fairly new thing for us this year. I mean, we've had advisory teams in the past. Kind of went away from them for a little bit just because you know, a lot of those folks just started to age out, and things just kind of got sideways with it. But last year, the commission created this process called the Deer Management Initiative, and we pulled together a bunch of the historical stakeholders that we've always worked with, because we still obviously value those connections, those relationships, that the perspective that those individuals and those groups bring. But we also wanted to bring forward some newer voices into the arena. We want to have a variety of opinions when we talk about deer, because we never can just manage deer for like one set of individuals. So many people in this state are affected by white-tailed deer, positively and negatively. So we need to try to balance those things out. So we went through a pretty intensive process with the Deer Management Initiative last year. And what we decided was that those individuals had such a really good working relationship, and we developed such great relationships through that, even though that DMI process ended, and it was always meant to be a sort of a short-term 1-year thing. We felt it was really important enough to basically turn those individuals over into what we're calling deer advisory teams. So we've got a UP team, a Lower Peninsula team, and we worked on pulling together a whole charter and set of rules and standards for those individuals to go by, how the individuals and teams get replaced and stuff like that. So this is something I see us really involved in moving forward, and that's certainly a positive. Right now, we're meeting monthly, and we're going to have discussions and get their feedback moving forward, because next year is a deer regulation cycle. And I know we can say that pretty much about every year in the past like 10 or 11 years, but we're really supposed to only be doing this every 3 years. And you think of like, if you think of our deer regulations as almost like a science experiment where you tweak something or you move something and then you measure to see how it responds. The best way to do that is to not tweak it, see what happens like in the first like 1 year, and then tweak something again and see, like, you need time for that to play out. You need time for it to move forward. And we have not done that. So we're going to try to bring forward a new set of recommendations next year, and just let it chill for 3 years. So the individuals on this group are working really hard. We've talked a lot about different data. We're having really good discussions and hard discussions about what needs to be done to try to improve deer management in the state. And ultimately, I think over the next couple of months, we'll continue to meet and talk and really try to develop recommendations from a UP perspective, from a Lower Peninsula perspective, try to merge it into sort of one statewide perspective that accounts for those differences, but still makes sense regionally for each group, and bring that to us. And then we'll take that as a department and try to craft our regulations that ultimately go before our Natural Resources Commission. If it works perfectly, knock on wood, our deer advisory teams, our DNR, and our Natural Resources Commission will all be in agreement of what needs to be done, and things should go pretty smoothly from that respect. Inevitably, what happens is there's controversy involved, because not everybody can agree on deer regulations and management universally. So those are things that we got to work through, and we just have to make sure that the science that we're using to bring forward regulations is sound in terms of what we would expect to occur, the output to be.
I'll make a suggestion for your advisory teams.
Sure. Hit me with it, Dennis.
Since they're working so hard, are they getting free hunting licenses? I'm trying to hook you up, Jordan.
Well, to be fair, not everybody's working hard either, Dennis. So let's.
That's our secret. We're live, right?
Compensation commensurate with output. Well, we got to know a little bit about Chad Stewart as a professional. But one of the things I think is so important about the department staff is there's a very human side too, right? And unfortunately, in the last 6 months, there's been a lot of rocks thrown at the DNR from all angles, various subject matter. And, I think it's important to emphasize the human aspect of this. It's not Chad Stewart green jeans, right? I mean, you have a family, you have hobbies, you have interests outside of your work. Tell us a little bit about things that you like to do when you're not wearing green. What is a day in the life of Chad Stewart on a Saturday when you can write your own ticket?
Oh man, that's not really exciting because I live a pretty boring life. I grew up. I'm not a native Michigander. I grew
We
up.
got to cut the feed then.
Well, will it help if I tell you that I was not born in or raised in Ohio? Does that help at all?
That helps.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You don't watch your football team, do you?
No. I only to root against them. How about that?
All right. I guess you could say that.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. And if you don't know Pennsylvania has really a pretty similar culture for deer hunting as Michigan does, right? It's what you scout for in the summer and early fall. It's what you talk about when you go to camp where you go to camp. It's what you talk about around the holidays. Pennsylvania season's a little bit later. So, when everybody gets together for Thanksgiving, that's all anybody ever talked about because the hunting season was just after Thanksgiving. And then at the Christmas parties and stuff, the family get-togethers and the holidays, it's always telling the stories about how the hunting season went. So I grew up with that. So I was deep in it from the start. My dad was an amazing hunter. He still is. He's in his mid-70s now and obviously slowing down. But just an incredible hunter and had an incredible passion for it. So much so that he spent a lot of his weekends and evenings out hunting as much as he can. And when he wasn't doing that, at that time when he was growing up or when I was growing up in like the 80s and 90s, he went through the process of becoming a deputy conservation officer. So you can actually in Pennsylvania, you could be deputized as a conservation officer, and he was with the Fish Commission. So Pennsylvania has two different commissions. They had the Game Commission and then the Fish Commission. So he was working in the summertime doing fish patrols and stuff like that. So he's got a sort of a law enforcement background, even though it wasn't his permanent job. It was almost like a volunteer thing, right? And he did that for 30 years. So that's how much he was ate up with just conservation and working out in the woods and in the streams and stuff. So that was really impressed on me. He would take me along to turkey hunt for a little bit, and he realized I was probably moving too much and too loud, and he stopped taking me turkey hunting a little bit. But he was real happy to take me out dove hunting because I was the guy that was the kid that would run out and go get the doves that were shot out of the field. So I was the dog.
The retriever.
I was the retriever. Yeah, I was the retriever, and sometimes I was the executioner because sometimes you come up on the doves and they're still just kind of still alive. So you learn a lot of that stuff too. And then obviously got into deer and hunted deer. Would start going with him we had a cabin for a while until that burned down, and then we started doing some out-of-state trips just a couple hours away into West Virginia and hunted there. And that was sort of the equivalent of our cottage or camp, up north. We just would go to West Virginia and hunt and stuff like that. So the social side of things, the cultural side of things was really familiar with me with deer hunting. And that's one of the things that I don't know, I still find fascinating about it. And as I started to explore, what I wanted to do for a career in my life, you sit there and go through the course catalogs in high school and you see like, wow, wildlife and fisheries science. Like, you mean I can get a job actually doing stuff with wildlife and fisheries? That sounds kind of cool. Sign me up. So I went to schooling for that. They just teach you sort of general courses, and as you sort of progress in your schooling and eventually get into a graduate school, you start focusing on specific things. And I didn't think I would be going into like being a deer biologist. Although I always thought it was interesting. I thought a lot of things in conservation world were fascinating, but I start finding like a deer job here and a deer job there. And ultimately, found myself just getting more and more fascinated with everything related to deer, right? I mean, just their biology, that, like I said, the cultural and traditional stuff that hunting brings to it. I think the conflict stuff is cool as hell. I mean, it's controversial, but it's interesting because they're these big, wicked problems. So like stuff like urban deer management and stuff like that were just incredible. The habitat impact and how other species can be affected by, how many deer on the landscape and how they have the ability to sort of change, their forest, the forest and the understory around them and what that means to other species. I mean, the more you learn about it, just the more fascinating it becomes. So I just couldn't get enough of it. And there's so much literature out there on whitetail deer. You can't read it all. It's just an endless library of information with whitetail deer, and I was just ate up with it. So I just started focusing on that, and one thing led to another, and I got my first job down in Indiana as a deer biologist. And a year after I got that, the other deer biologist left. There's a long history of me getting into deer programs and people leaving shortly after so that just didn't really dawn on me until just this minute. But yeah, as soon as I jump in, people bail out. But no, worked down there for 10 years, or no, I'm sorry, 8 years. And then the posting came open for Michigan, and Michigan just had that. I don't know, the familiarity knowing that the cultural importance that like I grew up with in Pennsylvania. So it drew me to it. And then the fact that you can tack on elk and moose to your title as well was also appealing as well. So I jumped at that, was fortunate enough to get that, and I've been here ever since. And that was about 11 years ago.
Well, I'm going to shoot us through some rapid fire questions I got for you, Chad, that are just fun Q&A for our viewers. Nothing stressful. Then I'll say a couple of words, and I'll let you close us out this evening, Chad.
Sounds good.
So, question number 1. Baseball, basketball, or football?
Playing hockey. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. Hockey wasn't a real big thing for me. So I'm starting to enjoy watching hockey quite a bit. But I'm still fairly new to it. I grew up, baseball was my first love, honestly. Played a little bit as I got older. And that was my first love. So I really enjoyed that. Lately, I love watching football. So that's really what I love to watch the most. So Jordan, you were talking like Saturdays, what do you do on a weekend? I love watching college football, man. That's my favorite. I went to Penn State. Don't hold it against me. I feel comfortable saying that this year because they are terrible and nobody's going to feel threatened by Penn State. But yeah, that's my love. And then Sunday, I love watching NFL and talking with friends about football. So
who's your pro team?
Pro team. I grew up rooting for the Giants. And again, they're quite terrible, but I'm coming around to Detroit, but I feel dirty doing so because they're so good now. I feel like a bandwagon jumper. So people are going to see right through me, right? So I enjoy watching the Lions, but I can't say that I suffered through the hard years to say that I've earned the right to say I'm a Lions fan, but I get it. So
right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. You're a hunter. You prefer bow? You prefer rifle? I know you do both.
I do both. I spend a lot more time doing bow hunting right now. and that's primarily because I'm in this program with this urban management program that is bow only, and I take that commitment pretty seriously. So even if I have opportunities to head north and use a rifle, use a shotgun somewhere, I generally tend to defer to hunting the in-town deer, archery, trying to help out that program because I feel like I've made a commitment to that program to be a part of it. So I've been almost exclusively a bow hunter for a couple years now. But yeah, I want to get back into the rifle hunting a little bit, but it's hard to step away from the bow hunting, especially this year when I do not have a deer to my name yet, and so that's one thing I feel like I'm lacking on. It just hasn't worked out for me yet.
Favorite species of fish to catch?
Oh man, favorite species of fish to catch. I grew up really enjoying fishing the trout streams of Pennsylvania. And mostly what I was catching there were mostly rainbows is what we were finding. So that always has sort of a nostalgic piece of my heart. Just, the trout fishing. I've got a friend, I've got a coworker who's taking me out walleye fishing out on the bay multiple times. And man, there's not many things I would choose to eat over a really well cooked walleye. So if I'm thinking with my stomach, walleye's tough to beat, man.
Right on. Well, folks, we've about burned up our hour tonight, but I wanted to say a few things to you before we part, and I give Chad the closing here this evening. So it's an exciting time of year. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of rush, especially tomorrow morning. Somebody forgot their flashlight. Somebody's looking for the compass, whatever it is. Take that extra time. Make sure you go through your gear tonight. Don't wait till the morning. Be prepared. Try to be organized. A lot of times, especially here in the UP, people get out in the woods and they forgot things that they really need. And sometimes that can lead to unfortunate situations, people getting lost, whatever have you. We want everybody to enjoy this deer season and be successful, but most of all, we want you to be safe. We want you to come back home to your friends and family that love you. If you're chasing the 30 pointer, good luck to you. I hope you bagged a big one. And if you're going to shoot that 5-pointer at 8:15 tomorrow morning, good for you. I'm okay with that too. Whatever makes you happy. When you squeeze that trigger, that's the most important thing, is that you're happy with that deer that you're harvesting, no matter what it is, and to be thankful and to be grateful for that opportunity and be able to share it with your family and your friends. And that's really what tomorrow is about. It's not about squeezing the trigger. It's about making that memory with the people closest to you, with your father, with your brothers, with your friends, with your cousins, whoever it is that you're going to go out with tomorrow. It's about making those memories that are etched into stone for all time. Don't take a moment for granted. Chad, close us out this evening, my friend.
I don't know if I want to talk over that one. That seemed like a good way to leave us. Safety is so important. Jordan, just echoing what you said, and I'm a huge history buff, especially when it comes to wildlife stuff. So, just take a minute, even when you're in the stand, to reflect. I mean, we're at, I think, what is about 130 years strong here of deer hunting tradition in Michigan. Passed down from literally generation to generation to generation, and just sit there and reflect, like, man, I'm a small part of this. Now, how cool that is to be a part of. I mean, such a tradition and a culture of 500,000 plus strong that are participating in deer hunting at the very time that you are. I think that's really cool, and I gotta. As I get older, I get more nostalgic and get a sweet spot for that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Michigan Outdoors Report. We wish you all the best tomorrow morning. Shoot straight, be safe, and we'll see you next time.